Chapter 22, Revelations. Mary Daniel's stew and lunch invitation was a huge success, serving not only as much-needed relief from the stress of the last day, but also as an opportunity for everyone to become acquainted with their new neighbors. Gina had enjoyed spending time with Chelina, discussing the finer points of the art of basket weaving and pottery, while Mark Redding, Seth Daniels, and the other boys enjoyed showing off their archery skills with Nico, Will, and Little Bear, as Sarah sat solemnly alone at the table with Uriah, watching Caleb and Stephen swap stories about all the events of the day. "What's wrong, Sarah? I thought you would be happy now that it's all over," asked Uriah, finishing up his second bowl of stew. "I'm worried about poor Martha. Rebecca didn't take it well, and I think she blames us." "And Caleb," said Sarah, sliding her spoon around the inside of her empty bowl. "Oh, I wouldn't worry about Rebecca. She's always been that way." "You know that." "I know, but still, it makes me mad. We bent over backwards to make her feel better, comfort her, and include her in everything that was happening, and still she," Sarah muttered, stopping in thought. "I don't know how Elijah deals with it." Uriah chuckled. "I know, Elijah told me about it." "You know, it might not be her fault completely," he began. "What do you mean by that?" "You should have seen how she acted earlier." "Especially with Chelina and Martha," said Sarah, noticing a slight grin forming on Uriah's face. "Okay, what do you know that you're not telling me?" "Oh, just some man stuff," Uriah grunted, watching Sarah stare him down, and then grinning even more. Sarah reached across the table and punched him in the shoulder. All right, I'll tell you, but you got to keep it to yourself. They've been trying to have another baby, at least that's what Elijah told me a few nights ago, but so far, they haven't had any luck." Sarah's eyes widened. "Oh, I see." "Hey Dad, we have company," yelled Seth from the meadow across from the house, where the boys were all shooting at targets with their crossbows. Joseph and Uriah stood up and walked out to the trail as a group of 6 riders approached from the northeast trail. Joseph could see one of the men had his hand in a sling. "It's Tom McNeil," said Joseph, looking over at Uriah, "and that looks like Roger with his hand in a sling." Joseph waited as they approached. He could tell there was something wrong. "Hi Tom, how's it going? Everything okay?" asked Uriah. "Hi Joseph," Uriah, muttered Tom, as he got off his horse. Joseph and Uriah immediately noticed that all their clothes were scuffed up and their faces and arms had smudges of black soot all over them. "We had some guests visit our camp last night. Have you had any visitors yet?" Uriah and Joseph looked at each other nervously. "Well, it's funny you should mention that. A few of our kids took off yesterday to go fishing along the river to the south and got lost. Then they wound up getting snake bit and meeting up with a group of people who live a few miles south of here," Joseph explained, motioning to Chelina and Nico and the other boys. "But they're nice folk. Why? What happened to you?" "Well, last night our camp had a large group of men, about a dozen or so, stop by for a visit. At first, they seemed friendly, but then they started asking us all kinds of unusual questions, like if we'd seen anyone else around the area, or if we had guns, rifles, or ammo, and so on. Next thing we knew, they were pointing rifles at us. They took some of our jewelry, gold, and food supplies. Then after warning us not to interfere with them, they set fire to our new barn before they left. That's why we're all covered in soot. It took us an hour to put the fire out," declared Tom. "Sounds like the scavengers we've been hearing all about," mentioned Uriah. McNeil nodded. "That's what we're thinking." "How are all your families, Tom? Are they okay?" asked Joseph. "They're okay, a little shook up, but Roger here," said Tom, pointing at Roger's arm. "What happened to you, Roger?" asked Uriah. "One of them shot me in the arm as I was going for my crossbow," he said. "Then the rest of their men went around from house to house. They confiscated all our crossbows and any other weapons we may have had, along with all the jewelry or gold they could find." "Damned scavengers, I know that's who they were," insisted Cardones. "What can we do to help you, Tom?" Joseph asked. "Well, first, do you have anyone who can help Roger? He needs to get his arm looked at right away. We think we got the bleeding stopped, but the bullet is still in his arm and needs to be taken out." "Well, let's see. I know the Argus family is north of here, and they have some doctors that might be able to do that, but it will be at least a 2-hour ride at best, said Uriah. Chelina, who had been listening to the conversation, spoke up. I can take care of that for you, but I'm going to need some things. Unfortunately, all my medical instruments are at my home in our village, said Chelina, walking over to where Roger Cardones was standing. My name is Chelina Ward. I'm one of the healers in my village. Joseph and Uriah gave each other a confused stare. Dad, she's right. We can vouch for her. Chelina can help him. She took care of Peter's snakebite and I saw all her medical instruments. I'm sure she can help Mr. Cardones. Joseph looked at Chelina, then at Caleb. Well, Caleb, why don't you, Peter and your friend Nico, go help Miss Rogers gather up whatever she needs, ordered Joseph, turning to Chelina. Chelina, you're welcome to help yourself to our home if you need a place to work on Mr. Cardones. You may use Seth's room. Okay, echoed Caleb and Chelina. Will that be all right with you, Roger? Roger nodded. Sounds good to me. Chelina walked over to Roger and placed one hand gently on his shoulders. Okay then, let's go take a look at that arm of yours, offered Chelina, as she smiled and led Roger into the Daniels' house. While Caleb and the other boys helped Chelina find the materials she needed to help Roger, the men huddled underneath the Daniels' porch, considering ways on how best to deal with this new development. So, you think these men who raided your camp are part of the group we've been calling the scavengers? Asked Daniels. They could be, but we've never really met up with any of them before, face to face, replied Tom. So, what can you tell us about them? How many were there? Anything special about their horses? Did you happen to catch their names? Tom thought for a minute. There were 2 of them that seemed to be in charge. There was this one short guy, kind of chubby, who was ordering some of the other men around. You saw him, didn't you, Brian? Tom's younger brother, Brian McNeil, who stood behind the others smoking on a pipe the whole time, combed his fingers through his hair as he thought, yeah, I think I remember some of the other men calling him Mr. Rondo, or Rando, or something like that, he said, speaking slowly with a slight drawl in his voice. No, it wasn't Rando, but, let me think, Rolando, stammered Tom. Rolando, that was the name they kept calling him. Then there was a second man who seemed to be the real leader. He looked a little younger than Mr. Rolando, dark-haired, slim, and athletic-looking, in his mid to late 30s, I'd guess. I didn't really catch a name except one time. I think this Rolando guy called him Gabriel. He kept quiet most of the time, but he was the one who told the other men to search for any guns and gold. Good, Tom. That helps a lot. Is there anything else you can think of? Asked Uriah. Tom scratched his head in thought and looked at the other men, then his brother Brian. Brian pulled the pipe out of his mouth again. One more thing I noticed. One of the saddles on the horses had a bag with a name printed on it. It read, "The Wings of Fortune," whatever that meant, said Brian, quickly replacing the pipe into his mouth. Mr. Rawson, who had been leading the team for several miles, gently nudged his horse and pulled it to the side of the others as he let them pass on the narrow trail, letting Dominguez once again resume the lead position. Being a man of the sea for most of his life, Rawson found this part of their journey growing more difficult as he felt the dense forest beginning to close in around him. Too close for his comfort, he thought. After all, if Dominguez were seeing ghosts or phantoms in the trees, who could blame him? Rawson was beginning to see and hear things in the trees himself that would have made any sensible man of the sea want to run for the haven of a ship in water. "We're being watched, sir. I tell you that for sure," said Rawson in a low voice, sliding in next to Montez, who was riding near the middle of the group, relaying the message to Montez from Mr. Dominguez and Seaman Wilkes, who were now in the lead, about 50 yards ahead of them. "Rawson, are you sure your men know what they're looking at?" scolded Montez. "I mean, really, these 2 men thought they saw ghosts earlier this morning in the trees, remember?" asked Montez, with a hint of skepticism in his voice. "Sir, I've known Mr. Dominguez and Seaman Wilkes for a long time. They're not one who are prone to be seeing phantoms or ghosts. If any of them say we're being watched, we are being watched, sir," whispered Rawson, with a hint of frustration. "Is this based on any facts you have, or just a gut feeling?" asked Montez. Rawson hesitated. "Call it a gut feeling, sir, a real gut feeling." Montez reconsidered the situation as Rolando moved up closer. I don't know, Montez. Don't forget, these were the same men who allowed a couple of captives to break free and escape on one of our earlier expeditions a few months ago, chimed Rolando, who had been listening in from behind, edging his horse in next to Montez to gather in all the gossipy details. I would be hesitant to put a lot of faith in their gut feelings on this. Montez shot Rolando a critical glare and then turned his full attention back to Rawson. Mr. Rawson, find out what's going on that has Wilkes spooked before we go any farther, ordered Montez, keeping his voice low and out of Rolando's earshot. Yes, sir, replied Rawson, returning to the front of the group with Dominguez. All stop, yelled Rawson, after edging in next to Dominguez. Dismount. Everyone keep your eyes open, both sides and guns at ready, ordered Rawson, waving one hand over to Wilkes as well, who was riding two horses behind them. Bring the map up here, Wilkes, he barked. As Wilkes brought the map up to Rawson, Montez had moved up on foot next to Dominguez as they unfolded the map onto the back of Mr. Rawson's horse. Here's where we are, pointed Rawson, or where we should be, next to this area marked Prince William Forest Park. We've been following this trail that is part of the old Highway 95 going south along. Here, Rawson pointed again. Rawson turned to gauge Montez's reaction to his next question. If you don't mind me asking, where exactly are you taking us, Mr. Montez? Asked Rawson. Montez looked again at the map and pointed to a place that appeared to be a few miles west of their current position. We are going here. Montez placed his finger on the map as Dominguez and Rawson leaned in closer to get a better look at the map. If we take a shortcut along this trail, we should be able to reach it in less than an hour, said Montez, looking up at the sky. I'd say it's nearly noon now. We should be able to get there and get what we're looking for and make it back to the ship before nightfall. Rawson looked at Montez. You're taking us to an old military base? Not exactly. It was a training base for an old police organization they once called the FBI, explained Montez. I'm looking for a series of bunkers that should be located around here and here. Montez pointed again to the map. Bunkers, sir? Asked Dominguez. Yes, bunkers, replied Montez. Great. So, let's say we find these bunkers, and they're still intact after so many years. Just how are we supposed to get in them? Asked Rawson, disbelieving that Montez had any clue as to what he was doing, and what could be of value to the company inside old military storage bunkers. With these, said Montez, grinning and motioning for Rawson to follow along with him to one of the wagons in the rear of the group. Stay here and watch the horses, Mr. Dominguez, ordered Montez, as he led Mr. Rawson to the rear wagon that had several items covered up in canvas tarps. He reached over and pulled up one of the tarps that had been tied down over several crates of food, next to two small boxes. As soon as he saw the two boxes, Rawson immediately knew what they were. He also realized that Montez had to have very high connections in the company. Plastic explosives, especially the kind he had just been shown, were not only rare and difficult to find, but very, very expensive. What are you two gabbing about back there, and why have we stopped? Rolando chortled as he got off his horse and walked towards the wagon. Montez immediately covered the crates back up. So, tell me, Mr. Rawson, can you get us there or not? Montez asked, trying to avoid the curious stare coming from Mr. Rolando. We certainly can, sir, Rawson replied. And will we see any more ghosts or phantoms? Montez asked. Not a one, sir. Very well, you may go tell Mr. Dominguez that he may proceed, and make haste. Time is of the essence, ordered Montez, watching Rawson as he headed back to the front of the group, before turning to face Rolando. Well, Serge, I think we solved our little dilemma. We are going to be back on our way in just a minute. Most splendid, I hope, for your benefit, Mr. Montez, that this excursion of yours yields something of value to the company. Otherwise it would be a shame to return to Savannah empty-handed, teased Rolando, chuckling loudly before turning around to return to his horse. Oh yes, Mr. Rolando, Montez mumbled under his breath, by the time we're done here, my hands will be far from empty. And then he added in a quiet, hushed voice, but, I hope, not before you find my hands wound tightly around your chubby little neck.
You have been listening to Caleb Elgin, The Rise of the Clans by David E. Farmer. Also available on Amazon Kindle. More chapters coming soon. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.